Welcome back to another episode of the Collaborative IEP Podcast. I'm Ashley Barlow, your host, and I am so happy you are here. Friends, today we're going to talk about All About Me books, and we're going to talk about them through a different lens. I have done a lot of market research over the last year, and something that I am hearing from you with a resounding yes, and I think honestly it's kind of a sign of the times, is you want to know more about legal rights. And what I want to say, and what I really hope that I portray here on in the podcast and on my social media channels and in my products, is that we can protect your legal rights and we can exercise our legal rights while also being collaborative in the process. I also hope I convey that sometimes being collaborative means going to a trier of fact, going through a court-like process, or, whether it's due process or it's a state complaint or it's an OCR complaint or whatever it is, in order to be able to move forward off of a point where you're at impasse. And so today, at the beginning of the school year, we're going to talk about All About Me books, and we're going to talk about them through a different lens. I'm not going to talk about what to put in them and all of that kind of stuff, although you'll get some of that kind of secondarily. What we're really going to talk about is All About Me books as a legal protection and how we can use them in order to best serve us legally. So that's what we've got going on. I'll tell you, just as an aside before we kind of get started, that my kids are both in back to school mode, and we had two transitions going on. We've got Griffin going to college, and we've got Jack going to high school. And so this year, whereas in middle school, I updated it, somewhat minimally because his gen ed teachers were changing, but his special ed team was largely the same. And they did such a great job of getting everything set up and modified for him so that when he went to gen ed, like, they knew him, they had his back, and that seemed to be what was most important. So I sent it and I updated it, but this year it needed like a major overhaul because he has all new people. And so we've had a lot of chaos. I talked about it in in my last episode. I fell and I have a grade 3 sprain in my ankle. I have an infected bug bite that is really kind of painful and disgusting. We are packing and planning and doing all the things to send Griffin to college, kind of our first experience with this on this side of the developmental world, right? Like we did it for ourselves, but now we have to do it as parents. And there's something very cathartic about organizing your thoughts into a document. And so while I kind of like put off writing Jack's All About Me book or updating it, and I, was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Once I sat down to do it, mine was an update. It probably only took me like 45 minutes. And I was like, it was like a big check off my list. If you follow Kelly Hampton, if you don't, you need to, at ETST, at ETST, at it's an acronym for enjoying the small things. She talks about basement window projects. She had this basement window thing that like every day she would think, I need to do that. I need to do that. I need to do that. And she didn't. Then when she finally did it, she was like, hi, I feel so good. And so that kind of led to this movement, I think. And Kelly, if you're listening to this, then you correct me, where she has most productive days. And she'll like share them in stories. And it's very motivating actually to me ancillarily. It doesn't always like make me get away from my desk, honestly, or off my couch. But it's true. Like when you accomplish something like that, you feel better. But more than that, like on a personal level, this year for me, it has been like, okay. I at least feel like I've done a huge part in transitioning him to high school. And that's really kind of like one of the things that we're going to talk about in our outline. Because I didn't want this to be a rambler, I have this outlined. And so if you're watching, you're gonna see me look over there. Also, if you're watching, yes, you're right. I don't have on makeup. I got all set up with a heating pad on one leg, ice on the other, and then I was like, oh crud, I forgot makeup. So here we are. Natural me. Probably not natural beauty, but it's natural me. So I'm really gonna work on apologizing for my appearance because I feel like I do it on every single episode. Anyway, let's move forward. So All About Me books as legal protection. That's really kind of what we're talking about here. And so, of course, we can talk a second about what All About Me books are. I call mine a Jack book because it sounds like a MacBook. I adopted that from my friend Molly Matthias. Phil Matthias is a famous doctor in the Down syndrome community. They have a son named Mac, which is spelled, funny story about Mac, it is spelled MAC. One time his name had a K on it on his name tag, and I was like, they used to live in our community, and I said in the greater Cincinnati community. And I was like, "Oh, Mac, I thought your name was MAC." And he goes, "The K is in my heart." And I just like totally loved it. So Molly made something called a MacBook, and she worked at the Down Syndrome Association. She used to print on it, and I was like, "Perfect." And guess what? My kid's name is Jack. And even more perfect, our district has one-to-one MacBooks. And so I don't know if anybody else ever realizes it, but I think it's funny. It used to be filled with terrible puns. I have taken them out. But for example, it used to say, "Hi, Jack" on the introduction page. And then parenthetically, it said, "Don't say that on an airplane because it's hijack." I had all kinds of them, like with Jack's activities or exercises from First Steps. I wrote them all down because I had so many helpers with my aunts and my parents and my nannies and babysitters, and everybody was working with him all the time. Those were called Jacktivities and Jacksercises. And then his snacks were called, what I call, oh, Jackatizers, like appetizer. Anyway, yes, that is where my energy has to go. Now my energy goes on like carpool schedules. Anyway, so the All About Me book, but that's a good point, right? Like you put your personality into it. And my personality is pretty casual, pretty silly, lots of gratitude, as I say all the time, etc. But basically, it's a tool that parents create in order to introduce their child to the school. But if you stop there, I think you're falling short. I also think it is really important in that document to highlight strengths, needs, communication style, preferences, supports, experiences, all of that stuff. So, in my opinion, an All About Me book should not just be cute. It should be a resource for teachers and staff that then kind of secondarily can be used as evidence and documentation. And that's kind of like where the legal stuff comes in, right? So what I want to make sure that is really really clear is that I don't think this is a document that you should write to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna slam them," or anything like that. Like, it needs to be written with the intention of, "This is to help you," but also acknowledging that you as a parent have a right and an obligation to meaningfully participate in the IEP process, and not just meetings. And so this is an opportunity to be like, "Hey, here's what I know about my kid. Here's what works at home in the community. Here is what has worked in school in the past, and I'm giving it to you," right? And then you do have a paper trail that says, "I've given it to you." So the legal angle then is it serves as parent input, which is an important part of the IEP process. It's legally mandated that parents provide input. And then IDEA mandates that the team, including the school staff, consider parent input in the entire IEP process. So it actually is extremely, extremely important. And as I said before, my next bullet point, I just kind of alluded to, and that is it documents that the school had knowledge of these things, right? Like I had a parent say to me yesterday, they didn't know that my kid had this medical diagnosis. And I'm like, well, did you have it in an All About Me book? Yes, it's in the IEP. But like when you say it and you highlight it again, it becomes really, really important. And gosh, that could be like a major safety thing if it's something like diabetes or epilepsy or, I mean, like really dangerous interfering behaviors, elopement, stuff like that. Elopement isn't a medical diagnosis. Now I've taken this to the next level. It also kind of protects against these claims of like we didn't know. A lot of times schools will say, we didn't know about a child's unique communication style. Gosh, if we had known that they had apraxia, we would have changed things entirely. Or if we had known that they have been using letterboarding for the last 2 years, we would have asked for a letterboard at school. Medical needs, maybe triggers of the child. And triggers can be like so specific. I talked to a team yesterday about a child that had been educated inclusively all the way through up until that point, and was then getting their specially designed instruction in a resource room with kids that had some complex medical needs. And this child, like, traditionally, the parents were like, they are uncomfortable, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? Like, my child is uncomfortable around people that are utilizing mobility devices, and people that are, you know, that have medical equipment, like a G tube or an IV pole or something like that. And my clients were like, I think my child is honestly anxious about it because they've experienced some of those things. And so they're nervous. Like, I don't, when I look at somebody else's G tube, it reminds me of when I had a G tube. Or when I look at a hospital bracelet, like my own kid, Jack, won't wear a hospital bracelet type thing at a water park or at a trampoline park or those places because it feels like a hospital bracelet. And so the parents are like, hey, no judgment here. It's not like, well, therefore we can't be in that classroom, but we need some intentional teaching around loving people with complex medical needs and developing relationships and being a nice friend and being a kind human and those kinds of things around people that have these particular needs and have devices adjacent to them. And I think that's, like, really important. So if we document those as triggers, which this is the category, can be very unique, then school can't come back and say, "Well, we didn't know," right? And if they do, you can be like, "See also my email of August 15th, wherein I said that this is a trigger or something that I've anticipated," or something like that. These things also can show consistency, and I talk about this in when I talk about Sunday emails, but the All About Me book too. I mean, I have sent one of these suckers every single year, and I think that says a lot for me as an advocate. I think it says that I am relentless, right? Like, I haven't skipped a year. We've had a lot of stuff going on in our lives, and I've never skipped a year of the All About Me book. I want to collaborate. I want for you to know my kid, and I want to be able to help you to get to know them in an efficient way that's through our lens. I want for you to know that I know this much, that I do take him to therapy, that I do take him to the doctor, that I understand this stuff and that I understand the impact of it and how to support him as a kind of secondary thing to the medical and the therapeutic diagnoses and struggles and all of that stuff because I can be a resource. It shows that our needs are evolving, right? Like, it shows the progress. When I go back and I save mine as Jack Book preschool, Jack Book first grade, he did not skip kindergarten. Kindergarten 1, kindergarten 2nd time around. I save them that way, and, occasionally I do go back and look, and I see how I've grown as an advocate, and I also see how he's grown, and so we see those evolving needs and the progress and all of the supports and interests, right? Like, Jack is still into ropes, and he was in preschool, so that one's not evolving. He almost always has a rope in. Oh, there's ropes in the car. There's probably a rope in my office. There's a right now the pile of Jack stuff is a flip-flop with a bathing suit and Tenzi, a stack of clear Solo cups, a gift bag, and a very large carabiner. I don't know that there's any other random stuff of Jack's in here, but there's also a pile of stuff I've taken from him, like the charger I travel with, the lid to a Yeti water bottle. This is what I do. I sit at my desk and I just take shit away from him. Anyway, but I digress, and you are used to that. So, so we've got this kind of legal angle that we can this muscle that we can use when we need the muscle. Um, I will tell you, I did this yesterday. I had a discussion about hearing aids. We're having a hearing aid. Oh, I hate to say compliance, but like, well, it's tolerance. Like Jack is having a hard time wearing his hearing aids, and then we're having a hard time getting them to and from school, which is really probably more like a management situation. Like it's like the organization and all that kind of stuff. It's not like a major dynamic crazy issue, but I'll tell you my own family, I was like, so, we've talked about this, we've talked about this, we've tried plan A and plan B. So here's where my frustration lies. And here's why this is important. And here are maybe some angles that you can take along all the different lines of communication, right? Because you know how special ed goes with administrators and teachers and aides and secretaries and all of the people. So here are some things that you can stress in order to make sure that this is here. It's all documented for you right here, right? And so I think that like really really helps. And it helps to collaborate. It's not like there's not a whole lot of judgment. Listen, I forget I forget shit all the time. So there's actually zero judgment. If I were to judge, I would be on the losing end of it every time. But there's collaboration and like, we got a problem, let's fix it. And I think that's important. So, that's kind of the legal angle. Obviously, there's many, many advocacy benefits as well. So we've got the legal angle, we've got the advocacy benefit. I don't intend to go through the advocacy benefit, but just the list that I made quickly is it establishes the child as a whole person, not just a diagnosis, not just a data point. We're humanizing kids. It helps the new teachers. It helps subs immensely because you can say, I want this part of sub plan. It helps the related service providers who are sometimes in and out because a lot of these people are contracted in our smaller districts. It helps them to understand more quickly, more efficiently, 10 minutes in and out, and they've got it. And sometimes it acts as a conversation starter, right? Like I have my parents prepare them at new IEPs. If I'm new to a thing, to a team, well, I'm not on the team as an attorney, but you know what I mean. And then they're like, "Oh, yeah, ropes," or "You never know what Jack's gonna bring into school," or whatever it is, and then that kind of, like, is a nice way for everybody to be like, "Yeah, I know this unique and special and capable and amazing kid," right? And that's pretty fun. So, let's switch back to, like, the legal realm here. So the practical legal uses are pretty important, right? Because what we're really trying to do is to what we're really trying to do is help teachers and establish good forms of communication. What we are trying to do from a legal through the legal lens is establish a record, document, right? Like any good attorney is going to tell you document. So one thing that I like to do is to attach it to, like, the parent interest statement, which I call a future planning statement if you're going to a meeting. If it's the beginning of the school year, I attach it to that back to school email. I have templates for all of these things in the membership. And don't forget, you get a free 3-day trial to the membership. And also, if you've been following on social media, as an aside, we are getting ready to make some awesome changes in the membership over the next year. You also can then reference it if you reach impasse. So, like, lots of times in a prior written notice, the parents, they've reached some disagreement, and then school has to write and say, give notice of whatever the decision is, the prior written notice. And so you can reference it in the discussions relative to that. So, on August 17th, we presented or we emailed or whatever the All About Me book, and it had this particular phrase in it. And that can help. It explains the letter explains what it provides resources for whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then, of course, these things can be used in due process and state complaints and OCR complaints and depositions and mediations and discussions around, the conflict resolution component to this. So, and a big key to this is like my little star underneath that part is this demonstrates excellent parent participation and involvement with that kind of collaborative undertone, which is like super duper important because parents oftentimes, I mean, we know the statistics, right? Like even state complaints, but due process complaints and particular are hard for parents to win. And so if we have like really good record of really good collaboration and effort and trying, we're going to get to a much better place. So, what's that mean for how these things need to look, right? Like if we want to use them both for collaboration and for kind of this documentation legal purpose, which is how I write them, then the most important thing is to use really objective language. I call this police report language. So, you want to make sure that you contain medical diagnoses, communication methods, safety concerns, sensory sensitivity, successful accommodations. The list goes on and on, but do those in a really objective way. You know that I'm really wordy. I like a lot of words. I like to say a lot of words. I like to divulge a lot of information. I am like turning on the faucet. And so sometimes, like when I did it this time, there were times that I just wanted to write and write and write. And I literally copied and pasted that into Chat GPT and said, make this more objective and give me bullet points. And they did that for me. And then I could go from there, obviously. So, make sure that it is objective. Definitely make sure then that you add in the subjectivity. You add in things about your child's strengths, things about kind of your gut intuition, a few things that are funny. Like put your soul into it, right? Put your soul and your personality into it. And remember, you can have the undertones that you want. So like my undertone is like it's also an overtone. It's everywhere. It's inclusion. And so, but like my pictures are inclusive and the language is inclusive and the throughout the entire thing, you're going to get hit over the head and also be subtly told that Jack is raised at home and in his community inclusively and that that is what is expected at school and also that he will succeed at doing that in school. So pictures can tell 1,000 words. I definitely recommend adding pictures. And if you have to like explain a picture, that's okay. I would just use like very simple captions under the pictures so that like if you want it to have some kind of legal context so that it does, right? Like Jack does a great job at church school every Sunday. Or Jack attends an inclusive classroom at church school every Wednesday night, something like that. So that factual, but with some subjective, like not controversial language can really help because it's showing this kind of collaborative tone. So those things are going to help this to be more positive in that legal setting. So, what do you do with it once you've made it? Update it annually, share it with the entire team, general education, special education, administrators, cafeteria workers, playground supervisors, obviously aides, all of the people. Share it and make sure everybody has it. Oh, the related service professionals, OT, PT, speech, music therapy, all of those folks. Obviously, keep a copy in your binder so that you've got it and you can reference it when you go to IEP meetings, etc. As you know, I like to keep physical records and then also electronic records. So I usually default to the ones on my computer unless I'm in a meeting. And then I do use my paperclip system to find documents when I am in the meeting because it's just not as easy on my computer for me. But you might be different. Also, if you notice that something isn't noted, like if you can tell that like that thing isn't being done, then in your Sunday emails, reference it, right? Like keep bringing it up, keep using it as a tool. It's a visual of sorts, right? So keep using it and being like uh, what I would do, I build the golden bridge, right? So like here's the page from the Jack book where we talk about supports for gym or whatever it is. Like it could be really specific, it could be not. And here's any additional information I have in light of what's happened in the last 2 weeks or anything like that, right? Like it doesn't have to be an I told you so. It could continue to be like, I am trying, I am helping, I am a resource, we're in it together kind of thing. And again, number one, that's right. That's helpful. That's what the legislators contemplated when they wrote IDEA. Number two, impasse happens and frustration reaches a point that sometimes you are in a legal situation and that benefits you legally. Gosh, these balloons, I got to turn that off. I don't know how to do it. So, in conclusion, I even wrote a conclusion to this outline. I hope you are really getting good benefit out of this. I was gonna say I hope you're happy, but that sounded mean. But yeah, I'm proud of myself. So simple, approachable, parent friendly, teacher friendly. That's what these things should be. And therefore they bridge the gap so that really schools hit the ground running as soon as they get them. Beginning of the school year, May, whenever. So I hope that is helpful. I will see you next week, same time, same place. If life is full of chaos for you, don't forget to take a second to chill and have some time for yourself. Have a great week.